What's going on, people? CP3 live in the lab, Sports on the Hill podcast, episode 211, coming to you with the best DC sports coverage around. We're going to talk some NHL, we're going to talk some NFL, we're going to recap the week that was with the Wizard that wasn't because of the coronavirus. We got the NBA roundtable, we're going to break that down very nicely. But before we get moving forward, Robbie, I know we got the news and notes, but I want to give a quick shout out to 151. His uncle that is in the hospital right now. He had a brain aneurysm a little bit before the show, so prayers to him. Um, he's a great dude. He's going through a lot right now, so I'm gonna dedicate this show to my man 151, his uncle. If you tune in Sunday nights at the Bar Radio, that's one of our co-hosts of one of our affiliates that we partnered up with. So, my man just called me and told me a little while ago. So prayers with him and his family, and hope his uncle has a speedy recovery. But Robbie, how are you doing tonight, good sir?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I hope he does get better. I know 151 is a good guy, and I'm sure any family of him is a family of the network. So yeah, I wish him a speedy recovery as well. Yeah, things are going pretty well. Sort of an up and down week. The Capitals did well. They won 2 out of 3, and then we've always talked about how I don't love the shootout. Ultimately, we lost one in the shootout, but getting 5 out of 6 points is great. We've got some breaking news right at the top of the thing. I want to thank Brian Brennan, who will be on in a little bit. He's been giving me lots of Jon Lester facts over the last few minutes. Breaking news coming in: Jon Lester, three-time World Series champion and cancer survivor, is in the works to join the Washington Nationals. It would be a pretty crazy rotation. Scherzer, Strasburg, Corbin, and now Jon Lester against a three-time champion and cancer survivor. A really good guy. I'm definitely going to want to get Brian's take on it later when we have him on. But Carol, what's sort of your immediate reaction to that breaking news?
Well, Lester is definitely a quality pitcher. You mentioned, surviving cancer. He's won Cy Young. He's won World Series. I believe he won the Cy Young. I want to refer to Brian. I believe he did, but I'm going to have to refer to Brian on that one. He's the baseball guru. But he has a great record, great reputation. Hasn't been any problems that I could recall, and that'll definitely be a solid addition to this lineup because you can't never have enough quality pitching. And after Strasburg went down last year, hopefully he'll be back 100% going into the new season. And Mad Max, he was had a couple of injuries and tweaks down the road last year too. So hopefully, they'll come back strong like we saw in 2019 because this team still has the capability to take it all the way, even though, man, Dodgers won it last year.
Yeah, so I mean, as you talked about, we got a crazy week. So we got that breaking Nationals news. The Capitals did really well those first two road games. In just a moment, we'll break that down with Anna. But also just this COVID news hitting the Washington Wizards. Usually in a week where we have very few games, as we only actually had the one game we talked about live last week, which was a blowout of the Suns. I'm happy they blew that game out because we had talked about on the show that they were about to go into the easy part of their schedule ish and hopefully get some wins and climb back into this. And instead, they missed all these games. Now it's reported that the Wednesday game is also postponed. So at least 4 games are going to be missed, maybe more. I mean, half the team, there's talk that 7 players, I think, might have it now. It's just becoming an epidemic. So we'll save that towards the end. We also want to break down all the NFL action. There were 4 super exciting games from this past weekend. We'll break those down quickly and get the thoughts of our roundtable on each of their favorite 2 games each, and then we'll we'll talk about the championship games too, because that's now set up, and so that'll be fun. I think Anna should be ready to go, and there she is.
I am here.
What's going on, Anna?
How you doing, Carol? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm feeling
Whew.
okay. I'm in here watching this Buffalo Philly game, and Buffalo's up 4-0, and I think the second period just ended. So Buffalo, I guess they still mad after losing to us twice last week.
Yeah.
Good, because I
I'll
mean,
take it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because people are like, oh, we beat up on Buffalo. Maybe that doesn't mean as much. Every team, every game is a 4-point game now. So
Yep.
like every game means so much. And these teams that go down 0-2 become super desperate, as we saw from the Pittsburgh game, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of happy because we need like Philly to come down. We need 5 points to be the best that any team has done through the first 3 games. That's what you kind of have to keep doing. It's this weird thing where all the teams play each other. So we have to hope that they all kind of beat each other up. And then we sort of rise to the top and are able to get 4 or 5 points, maybe 6 each week. And just,
Hopefully.
it's going to be a battle this year. But, we'll start from the beginning of the week. Carol, I know that you got to see a lot more of those games, really exciting games against Buffalo. Anna, do you have the scoring breakdown?
I do.
This game's perfect. Why don't you break down the first Buffalo game and then maybe pause every 2 goals? We can talk a little bit about sort of how it's going at that point, and then we can, we'll go through it that way.
That sounds good. So, Caps Buffalo on the 14th. So the first period, Robbie, you must have been thrilled because it was Backstrom scoring first at 5:43. There you go. Woo! Assisted by Ovi and Oshie. I know. I was gonna say you just got the whole representing that.
I do. I'm gonna keep being Vanna White.
A little Vanna White. I love it. 3 minutes later, we have Taylor Hall scoring on a power play to tie it up. But then we have Oshie scoring again on a power play goal at 10:33, assisted by Ovi and Carlson.
Yes.
So I think that we started off strong. I think we saw what we needed to see. There was kind of like over adrenaline, and they kind of needed to cool it a little bit. But I think they still played a good first 20 minutes.
Yeah, Carol, what were your thoughts on the first 20 minutes there?
I think it was definitely a solid start to the season. Backstrom getting the goal. He's one of the unsung, underrated heroes on this team. But it was good to see them come out the gate like that, ready, especially under a new coach. Against one of the up and coming teams. They made the playoffs last year. They signed Taylor Hall, so they're expecting a lot out of the Sabres. And for them to come out like that at Sabres home, their home opener, even though it's no crowd, but it was an impressive start in my opinion.
For sure. Yeah, I'm super happy. Some of my favorite players were mentioned in what you were talking about.
Yeah.
I think, Backstrom has always been known for his shooting, and we've been doing a fun thing over in the True Caps fan where we've been showcasing our jerseys to other Caps fans and talking about the stories that they mean to us. But Backstrom has always been one of those players that have always been the heart and soul of this team.
Mm-hmm.
How he goes is how the team goes, maybe even more than Ovechkin. Now, Ovechkin has all the flashy goals, and he's the one that everyone will always talk about as the great. But without Backstrom being there, Ovechkin would have never been this great. I think he would have been great, but I just don't think he would have been as good. I'm super excited to see them reunited this season because it's interesting that in 2018, they had to separate them for them to win a championship, right? But it's going to be interesting to see if they can maybe win a championship with them together because that secondary line with, Kuzi, Tom Wilson, right? To be some strength to that, and I think that it could be really exciting. And I'm excited that Verana is kind of on that line too. So, but maybe they could switch it back and forth that TJ Oshie and a Tom Wilson can flip flop depending on scenarios. Carol, what are your thoughts on being able to be, resilient and be able to have players move up and down the lineup?
Well, like you mentioned in 2018, they, had to do that because, you stay the same lines, teams know what to look for and try to, stop it because, we know they're all, quality on the ice. They can stick handle. They have plays that make other teams look foolish. But in the postseason, you're playing, going a chance of 7 games and playing these guys over and over. So they want to recognize the plays, recognize the setup, and that's going to lead to turnover. So yeah, you're going to have to switch the lines up to give them a different look, to give them something else to think about. So we saw when Barry Trotz, he was doing it throughout the season and getting used to the different lines, but didn't do it too much so they couldn't get too much tape on it. And then, postseason come, you practice with those lineups and you practice and then you go out there and you try to execute. So it's definitely important to, mix the lineups. And I'm hoping, Gilboy does that like Trotz used to do.
Yeah, I'm really excited about what Laviolette has instilled in these players early on. I think, not settling, that he still thinks that there's, stuff that could be better. He really wanted to move some of the defensive players that haven't seen any time yet into the lineup, but he thought our defense has been pretty good. He didn't feel like he could move anybody out. And that's kind of a good problem to have. We'll break more into that in, I think, the second and third games. But I've been really impressed with the line so far, and hopefully they can build chemistry, but also be resilient like they were in 2018 and be okay with switching up because they're going to have to do throughout the season. Unfortunately, injuries will probably happen just because of how condensed it is, and so how are they going to fight through some of that adversity, as all teams will have to face this year. So it's a completely different animal with having such a short off season and without having conditioning and workouts and the same, ratcheting it up. I mean, we went from a scrimmage to game one. There was no preseason game. So for that, the first period was pretty good. All right, break down the second period scoring, and then we can keep on going from there.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of us were probably surprised that John Carlson opened up the second period with scoring at 7:05, assisted by Oshie and Backstrom, which are just those fantastic names that we just want to keep hearing again. Brendan Dillon, there was that kind of surprise for a lot of us at 13:23. He scores to make it 4-1, assisted by Sherry and Eller. I definitely think that we wanted to hear Sherry's name. Didn't expect to hear it so much the first game. Glad we did with the assist, and I hope it continues because there's a lot of potential there for sure. Buffalo scores at 8:46 to make it a 4-2 going into the third.
Yeah, I'm excited that we kind of kept the pedal to the metal and we didn't let off. And I'll let Carol give his first thoughts on that period, and then I'll break mine in. I was just sharing to a couple groups.
Sure.
I think you saw Buffalo wake up. They got some things going. The Caps continue to push, but you always want to get pushed back in these games. First game or the last game of the season, you want to get a pushback. So it's all in how the team pushes back from that pushback and can try to swing the momentum back in their favor if they start to lose or start to slip away. And I believe you saw that in the second period.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously John Carlson, who we spent a lot of money on, and people were like, "Oh, it's too much money." And then he was a finalist for the Norris Trophy. Then people were kind of mad that he didn't get it, but I think that was probably ultimately the right decision. Brendan Dillon, though, I mean, the 2 goal scorers from the defense in the same period, that's pretty rare. Dillon, I think, was the most surprising, but that was sort of, as Gil mentioned on your podcast earlier, it was a seeing eye puck where it just sort of came from the point and just found its way in somehow. And that's what you got to do. You just got to keep shooting, and you never know when something like that's going to happen. And
I think we saw that from Chara as well. And, so it just he wasn't making it in, but you go for it. Why not? And I think that now that we've sort of solidified that contract with Dillon, maybe we'll see more of that, and hopefully less out of the box and more just taking those risks.
Right. So the beginning of the next period gets pretty rough in the sense that pretty quickly it looks like the momentum starts to slip because there's a goal at the end of the second period. There's a goal at the beginning of the third. I'll let you break it down. But Jacob Verana becomes a hero to try to salvage some of that momentum back, because I felt it was starting to slip from us. So why don't you break it down a little bit further than that?
So you were right. So at the end of the second period, 18:46, Buffalo scores. So we're like, a minute and 14 seconds left. And going into the third period, at 20 seconds in, they score. And that's like one of those things that you just absolutely hate to see. But then you get 26 seconds later, and Jacob Verana, he scores. And I said before in the Power Play Point podcast, and I've said it plenty of times, number 13 is going to redeem himself this season for that kind of fantastic first half of the last season, and then the not so great second half. Buffalo scores at 18:06, and then you have Hathaway scoring about 51 seconds later with an empty netter.
A long distance shot, just crazy. He did it from
Like that was, to me, that was really, I was like, oh, you go, Garnett. So that was a great a great win. Still with the, penalty minutes, not 11 minutes, but I think it was a great game for the team to kind of get out, any little kinks. I think it was a great game for Sammy.
Yeah, I agree. I think he played great. Carol, I want to get your thoughts on this matchup. I think 6-4 looks closer than it probably actually was, but I think I saw some good stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much for the most part, I think the Capitals, they outplayed them for the most part. They had a couple of lapses, new coach, new scheme, new pairings on the defense. You got Char out there now. So, I mean, you're going to have some lapses and growing pains in this process. But, it was a good game, especially to start the season. But I want to go back to that Bronner goal that he got on that turnover, and, he took advantage of it and scored, by them making that trying to do that feather pass instead of passing up the board. He was there right on time, boom, scored to, like you said, to get the momentum back on the Cap side. And you were saying, he can redeem himself for last year. I mean, remember, Kuzi went through the same thing. Had a great, regular season and the postseason. He fluttered, but then the following season, we saw what he did. So I'm not even mad at Jacob because the plays that he was making last year and the things that he was doing when he was hot, and even when he wasn't hot and when he wasn't like he was a liability on the ice, he just wasn't scoring. So he was still playing solid, defense and still, deserved to be on ice, even though his stick got cold. But, I think he's going to definitely make a statement on that second line this season. I would say, look out, he's going to have some highlight reel goals this year.
For sure. All right, let's get into the next game, which is same opponent, different night, different goaltender, Double V, as I'm going to call him, and makes his NHL debut. Now, people might not know a lot about Vanek, but he was an all-star caliber AHL goalie, played a lot of minutes down at Hershey, was the MVP of, they had this sort of tournament that they did for the all-star thing. So he was the best player of that tournament. And so people thought that he's young, but I think he's ready. He's a little bit younger than Sammy, but we've had young goaltender tandems in the past, and we have a good goaltending base. And I like that in our taxi squad, this sort of additional COVID players, we have some veterans, so they still practice alongside some veterans and they can still learn from them. I was excited to see the debut. So break down the first game for him and the scoring. You can break down the whole scoring because it's not a lot, and then I'll let Carol get his thoughts on this game.
Sure thing. So actually, no goals in the first, and going into the second period, at 1:34, we have Jacob Vrana scoring, assisted by Tom Wilson, and that was actually the only goal in the second period. Third period, Buffalo scores 31 seconds in, and I think that's maybe where some of us were getting a little bit nervous, but Tom Wilson comes through at 7:47, assisted by Backstrom, 2-1 win. Like you said, Vanacek, 30 saves. I thought he looked fantastic. I actually thought he looked better than Sammy did the night before. Not that I'm knocking Sammy at all, but I think that there was, I don't know, there was something about Vanacek's play that just was really, really impressive.
Yeah, Carol, what are some of your thoughts on his debut?
I definitely agree. I thought, they did score early in the third, but I was thinking, hey, this kid might get a shutout for his first start, because he was playing well. He was not being over aggressive. He was, staying low, staying in the stands. He wasn't getting caught out of position, and he looked really good out there. Samsonov the night before, I felt like he played solid, but like you said, Buffalo with that new lineup and offense they have, they're going to get their fair share. But I think that the Capitals played more solid defense against them the second night than they did the first night, which is why we had such a low score, 2-1, as in Buffalo tightened up their defense also. So it was definitely a good start for his NHL career. It would have been great to get a shutout, but 2-1. You're going to have those tough games in the playoffs. And like you said, Robbie, every game is a 4-point game. So a win is a win.
Yeah, exactly. And that Buffalo losing their home opener, they needed to double win the second one because you can't afford to go down 0-2, and so they brought their best game. And so because of these little mini series and the condensed season, and only playing your division, it feels like each regular season game is more drama than I had seen in a regular season game before. So it's going to be really interesting to see these teams go at each other at this level and what that means for then the playoffs that come after that. So it's going to be an interesting season, but obviously to go into Buffalo and we're able to get 4 points, incredible. I thought Verona being able to be consistently good, because sometimes Verona will have a night here or there, but for him to put a string of games, they plays well together, I thought was a really good thing. And just to sort of solidify these lines, not a lot of changing of players, a lot of even distribution of minutes, especially on the defensive end, which I thought was key, especially to try to get at least even a point in the third game, because if that game went to overtime, think about how many minutes that they had played in a relatively short period of time, because both Pittsburgh and Washington all played 3 games in the first 4 or 5 days.
Right.
So it starts to add up on you pretty quick, and then you go to overtime, and it's that fast-paced 3-on-3, and it's not surprising that it was a little bit sluggish in the shootout, with not a whole lot of scoring. But it's just been an interesting week. But I'm happy that they took the first 2, because it gave them an opportunity that if they didn't get the win in the third game, that we could still say we salvaged a bunch of points this week. So, Carol, any final thoughts on that sort of series before we get into the Sunday game?
I definitely think it's going to be interesting going down the road, playing, like you say, playing these teams over and over again. We saw it get a little chippy in the second game. So just imagine how this is going to go for all the teams that's playing these same teams over and over again throughout the season. I can't wait for when their folks start getting heated. And, then when you got Tom Wilson on your team, that tends to calm the other team down whenever he's on the ice.
Right. We got a lot of big guys now. I mean, think about the reach of Chara and Dylan. And I love looking at the screen. So I was showing it to Liz. I was like, that guy is 5 inches taller than the guy sitting next to him. So Chara sitting next to Dylan. And Dylan is 6'4". But he made Dylan look like he was my height, which is not very tall. And it was like, wow. It's like when Carol and I stand next to each other. But this is like, he's the second tallest guy on our team. So
once you put Chara and Sherry next to each other, and you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, he's a big guy. And so the fact that he's still playing 20 minutes a game in our system, when Boston was like, I don't know if he's going to be any good this year for them. I'm like, he looked damn good. I mean, I'd argue he's top 3 defensive players so far that I've seen, and he's still learning the system. I was reading a really great interview with the coach today, and it was saying that he was like, I want to work on this with the coach. I want to work on that with the coach. So he's studying the game, and he wants to take it to the film room, and he wants to study it and hammer it down, even though he's in his 40s, even though he's played more games than any other defender on the
Total
team.
Respect.
That's the sort of message you want to pass down to these other defensive players. And it's like they finally have, I think it's kind of like what Orpik did, but maybe even more. It's like you almost have like a captain of your defense now.
Yeah. And I think that's to me, I admire that so much. He came in, he didn't want to take over. He didn't want to dominate anything. He still wants to learn. And you can't do anything but just admire the fact that he's looking at it like, I've had 14 years with one team, but this is the first time with this team. And I want to learn from, what they know and how they work and everything. And I admire that.
Well, I mean, nothing pushes you to get better in a study when somebody basically tell you you're too old to play and you still have it in you. So now that's there. I know he's getting ready for when they face Boston, because he's going to have something to say about that. He might hit one of his old teammates a little bit harder than normal, just to say, "Hey, I still got it." Yeah, hopefully it's Marchand. I hope he runs him over and then smack him with a stick on his way by.
Yeah, right. You and me both.
Well, and one thing I hadn't even thought about until we're just talking about it now is we didn't play Buffalo a whole lot before, right? They weren't in our
No.
division, right? But
Yep.
he played them. That's the oldest rivalry in the NHL. Those two teams have been in the same division longer than any two teams, 50 years. So, I mean, he as a captain playing against them, he would have played against them a lot. And
Yeah.
so how much he must have influenced the defensive schemes going into playing Buffalo when Buffalo hadn't even played in the bubble. We haven't seen Buffalo since, almost for 300 days, so
Right.
like, I think that who knows how much leadership that could have helped in those first two games.
I agree.
All right, let's get into this Pittsburgh game. I'll let you yeah, let's break down the scoring by period again, and we'll just sort of
Yeah.
break it down from there. I know.
Okay, so we had a Sunday afternoon game against Pittsburgh, and here we go again with that 19 seconds into the first. Pittsburgh scores, but then we had Dowd scoring at 12:04 unassisted, and then followed by, which I think a lot of us were very excited to see, Ovechkin score his first for the season at 14:24, assisted by Kuzi and Wilson. So that was I think I needed to see that ending the first period, and seeing how much Alex Ovechkin scores and his celebration feeling vibe is the same regardless of what number it is, and I think that's why so many of us admire him so much.
Yeah, I think the Nick Dowd goal was sort of the surprising one.
Yeah.
That was a great play.
Well, unassisted, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, he sort of single-handedly got the sort of momentum back, and then obviously Ovechkin, being one of my favorite players, I was excited to see him. It's rare to see him go 2 games without scoring a goal. I know it's sort of a weird thing to say about any player, but it's true. And Kuzi and Tom Wilson assisting on it. In that situation, I believe Ovechkin was actually it was sort of the lines were being shifted around, and it wasn't sort of the conventional line.
Mhm.
And so although it's obviously one that had been the top line before, right? But like it hadn't been what they were playing the previous couple of weeks.
Right.
So, but that chemistry that they had from the 2018 season obviously comes back pretty quickly. But it was a beautiful assist by Tom Wilson and by Kuzi to
Mhm.
give Ovechkin the goal, and just momentum going into the second period. I was actually feeling really good about it, but obviously things don't go as well in the future. Carol, what were your thoughts being able to ride
Yeah.
at least some momentum shift?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to see a lot of the game. I was at work. I had it streaming on my laptop and on my computer at work. And I mean, it's classic Pens rivalry. Sunday noon. I mean, Wilson. You already know how I feel about Wilson. I mean, he's getting better and better offensively. He doesn't really drop the gloves as much as he used to, because most folks know what's going to happen if they do. So he's been able to stay on the ice, improve his offensive skill, and show folks why he's more than just a so-called goon that they label him to be, just because he like knocking people out when they want to tell.
Yeah.
I don't see that as a goon. I just see that as somebody handling their business. And now, everybody hates him that's not on the Capitals team because he's so-called dirty. But he's a physical dude that
Mhm.
I don't really see anybody else in the league that matches his physical size, his skill offensively, penalty killing, and his just love for the game. So folks hate him because they got to play against him. But if
Right.
he's on your team, you love him. So
I think he's worked a lot on some of the things that you're talking about, and
Yeah.
that's what I think is the most impressive thing. Is like he heard the criticism that he was just a goon, but in the minor league, we've talked about it and documented it throughout this podcast since he first came up, and for 5 years that he was a point scorer. He wasn't like a fighting guy. He kind of grew into that role early
Mhm.
on because he thought that was a team way to endear himself to both the fans and his teammates, which is true. It's something the fans love that sort of stuff. But then he realized that he's young and he can contribute in so many ways to this team, and he would not have been on the top line in the 2018 run if all that he
Right.
was good for was fighting, right?
Exactly.
You don't do that. Like that wouldn't make any sense. Like he's clearly takes up a lot of space, is able to open up situations, especially on the boards, and get people like Backstrom and Ovechkin and Kuzi or whoever the puck, which is what we need, and then they could be the playmaker, facilitator, and get it to whomever is going to
Mhm.
score. And Tom can score himself, right? So like he's got that beautiful shot that we saw, in this series of games. So yeah, I'm just excited for obviously his future. But let's get into the unfortunate second period, Anna, and then
Boo. Well, I will say that I frequently in my neighborhood drive behind a car, and I don't know if this person is a listener or not, but it would be awesome if they were. And their license plate is 43 Goon. And there's a caps, and so I was like, oh my gosh. And every time I like think I'm gonna like pull up next to him and like say like, light turns or something, I'm like, oh, all right. So anyways, going to that second, we have Penn scoring first. But then we have Backstrom. There we go at 10:09 with a power play goal with a tip in. Unfortunately, Pedersen scores at 12:57 to tie it up, and there are no goals in the third. So now we are going to the overtime.
The shootout. So overtime and then shootout, right? So Nicholas Backstrom, a beautiful power play goal. So that was a very interesting turn of events, right? So they take a penalty, and then unfortunately we give one right back to them, and then they take another penalty, which was great. So then we go up 4-on-3. And Kuzi has an amazing ability to pass.
Right.
And we forget that Backstrom can shoot, and especially at point blank, right on the net. Beautiful goal. So it was a great pass from Ovi to Kuzi to Backstrom to take that 3-2 lead, which I thought could stand, but unfortunately they tied it. The overtime, I want to say, was one of the most exciting overtimes. Great opportunities both ways.
Yep.
I love the 3-on-3 overtime. I have no problem with that.
I have no problem with it either.
I'm still a believer that they should just adjust that to 10 minutes and see if we could get a couple more games decided that way. And if we have to still do the shootout after that, then that's fine. But I understand that they're tired, whatever. But to me, that 5 minutes is some of the most exciting hockey of the whole game.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we could get more games to be ended that way and less than the shootout, in my book, that would be good. But we'll get into the shootout. Carol, real quickly before we do that, any of the second period scoring or any of the overtime action you want to talk about, or just you want us to jump into the shootout?
Yeah, I happened to see the tying goal. I was mad that I had just flipped on the screen and saw Pittsburgh score to tie the game with a 3. I was a little upset about that. But the overtime, I mean, I like the 3-on-3 for 5 minutes, and then if it doesn't go through there, then you go to the shootout. It's kind of like with the NFL, if you score a touchdown on the first drive, game's over. But if you don't, you just play to a sudden death. So, and excuse me, I think that's what adds to the playoffs that, you take that whole aspect out of it. And it's 5-on-5 sudden death until somebody scores. I just like the different levels of it during the game. And, then you have, like you saw the Capitals.
So you wouldn't be okay if we just extended the time? I'm not saying get rid of the shootout, but even if you just had to like double the amount of time. I'm like conceding a little bit of where I used to be. Before I was like, I'd always rather have a tie, but like, well, concede the shootout, but like.
I don't know about 10. I say they do say 8 minutes. I have to be 8 minutes.
All right.
Then
I'll
go
take
to
3 more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There we go. Let's talk about that shootout that had a whole lot of misses.
Oh my gosh. So.
Do you have the list, or do you want me to break down what happened, or do you?
No. You go for it. I just have a list of the top players that missed or whatnot, and you're just like, these are top, and names that you're like, they missed.
Yeah, Letang, Oshie, Crosby, Backstrom, Malkin, Kuznetsov was the first 3 for each, and then unfortunately Jake Gensel scores, and Ovechkin, who's not very good at this, honestly. Otherwise, they'd put him in the top 3 if he was. Didn't do it. They all went upper blocker side because that's what the story on this goalie was. But then the goalie is like, well, they're all doing this, so I'm just going to stop that.
Right.
So at some point, the team has to make a decision that, yes, that's what the analytics said to do, but like you got to read the scenario, which I feel like it sucks. I think they took that away from Oshie. He used to just read the scenario and play. I think that they need to let him do that a little bit more.
Yeah,
I think that he just had his mindset ahead of time. That's where they told me to go. I'm going to go there, and it didn't work. So anyway, Carol, do you have any thoughts on that shootout specifically, or?
It was, like I said, both of the goalies were playing well. Unfortunately, we used to Oshie, getting the first goal to, put the pressure on the other team. It didn't go that way this time. Ovi, we know his history with the shootout. But it is what it is. You can't win them all. They got it, like you said, 5 out of 6 points for the week. You can't really be mad at that. Top of the Metro Division, push forward when they play the Pens tomorrow night. And get revenge for that game yesterday.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, let's just quickly go through the upcoming schedule. It's pretty simple. Right back at it against Pittsburgh tomorrow. I'll start with Carol. What are your thoughts going into that game?
I'm thinking they want to come out with their A game again. They know where they had that lapse in the second period, and they're definitely going to try not to let that happen again because they don't want to go into overtime or into a shootout. They want to get those 2 points in regulation. So I think we're going to be in for a good game, and I think that the Capitals should prevail.
Do you real quickly think that we should go with double V in goal and get him his first crack against the Penguins? Or do you want to go back to Sammy and see what he can do on like a more rest and like a normal, timetable, thing?
I say being this early in the season, I say go back with double V, see what he can do against him. You saw with Samson Alville, let's see what he can do. He had a 2-1 game his first start. I think he deserves to get another start, in the rotation to see what he can do, see if he can mirror that performance and get the Caps to win against the pesky and much hated Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, and same sort of question. Do you think go with a double V or do you go back to Sammy?
No, I go with double V for sure. I feel like considering the COVID situation and how often we're going to play Pittsburgh, why not? See what happens.
Yeah, you're going to get 8 times against.
Yeah.
So like you got to give him a chance at some point. So you may
yeah.
as well see if he
and
can
I
do
just,
it.
I think, why not? And I do think that having seen the behind the scenes with Laviolette, I definitely think the team is going to come out with the goal of having less penalty minutes. I think there were some just, stupid plays, stupid times in the sin bin that just didn't need to happen. And he's going to tighten that up. And
I also think the whistles weren't even in some of those games. The
Buffalo, very true.
The second game, 5-0, to tell me that Buffalo didn't have a single penalty in a 60-minute period.
Right.
I mean, I saw 3 or 4 possible ones and give 5 to the Capitals. I mean, if you're going to call it 2-0, then maybe you're just calling it a tight game. I could believe that. But 5-0 is a pretty big, disparity in an NHL hockey game. So
I agree. And I think, there are things that we need to work on. There's definitely things that the refs need to work on. But I like to see Vanacek between the pipes for sure.
Yeah. And I think that it really is, the defensive effort is more so than, I don't want to blame officiating or anything like that, but I just,
of course,
it's, hopefully we'll see that effort that we saw from that game 2 Buffalo on defense. And I think it's exciting that Chara might be the best defensive pair we have, but maybe we have 3 defensive pairs that we can run 20 minutes each and none of them get tired out. And that's a great problem to have.
Huge.
When you have 2 great NHL defensive players in the wings waiting to try to get in, and maybe you get some of them in some of these back-to-back scenarios going forward or whatever. And it's always good to have good players behind these players to force them to be great, especially on the defensive end, which has always been, in my mind, the weakness or the sort of the lacking side. Caps historically have been better at scoring than defense, except for in 2018 where they were good at obviously both. But
that was top 5 in both in offense and defense. Yeah, that was what was so impressive about their run. It was giving up less goals and scoring more. So when they can get that dangerous, when you're playing like that, it's really nothing another team can do. And on the defensive parent, and Char, he's a little bit older, and with this schedule, back to backs, he's going to need some nights off. So I saw the tweet you put into the group chat about what Lavia said about having an extra defenseman, Siegenthaler and Van Riemsdyk, being NFL defenseman. NHL. I'm sorry, I wanted to get football. But yeah, I mean, they definitely want to be called upon to play when he might be off in these back-to-back games. So all we can do is put them out there and see what they do. And Buffalo just scored again. Now it's 5-0 versus Philly in the third with 9:13 left. Philly had an early push in the third period, but didn't get anything from it. And
This
both of
game,
those
this game
teams.
is in Philly. I want to remind people about that. So, real quickly, Christopher Clark and Mark Moore have been commenting on the feed, so I appreciate everyone for checking it out. A lot of people have actually been checking us out, so thank you. Christopher Clark says that there's no reason Ovi, who's always been appalling in shootouts, should be shooting. There's a lot of better options that they hadn't
Agree.
gone to yet. I think at some point maybe you think about that. I know that Ovechkin is a great player and he's your captain, but it's just not his thing. There are
Not this.
people that are
Yeah.
better at it on the
Yep.
team, and
I agree.
it's an important spot. I'm not saying never use him, but maybe you're your fifth or sixth guy, not your
Right.
fourth
Yeah.
guy.
Exactly.
And then he thinks that Orlov needs to be scratched and let Trevor Van Riemsdyk play. I think Orlov has actually been playing pretty great. I have not seen a whole lot of mistakes from Orlov. I'll ask the Orlov haters in the room. How do you guys think that he's been so far?
I think he's been better than I expected. I will say that much. I know it sounds really kind of ridiculous to say, but I feel like there are certain players that we've seen that got married and all of a sudden became parents, that all of a sudden the maturity kind of kicked in. And he may be one of those players where we're starting to see a maturity in Orlov. Am I a fan? No. Do I think he has potential and has done great the last couple of games? Yes, but I would love to see Trevor. I really want to see that kid come in and more than Siegenthaler, which is a shame because I like Siegenthaler before, but I feel like there's something about Trevor that we just haven't seen it yet, and I think that it's there, and I really want to see him more.
I think we'll see it in one of these upcoming Buffalo games.
Yeah,
Carol,
I agree.
Carol, your thoughts on, do you keep the defensive core the way it is, or do you still have to shift it up and get some of these guys that are in because it's an 8-man rotation but 6 spots? What do you do?
Definitely gotta, get the rotation right, get them, keep them fresh, keep them, in the system, keep them, working with their partner they're going to play with every now and again, and at least keep the chemistry together as much as they can. But honestly, I haven't had a chance to watch Orlov closely in the 3 games. Like I said, I've been watching them, but I haven't had a chance to analyze them like I normally do. So I really can't say how Orlov is played. I'll definitely get a chance to check it out tomorrow when they play because it's my day off. I'm still going to work, but
There you
I'm
go.
sure I'll be off to check it out and see what they can do against the Pittsburgh Penguins because I didn't get a chance to watch the game on Sunday. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, but we're all off pair with Carlson. I mean, I definitely want to, get a good look at that tomorrow night.
Right. He's saying that Orlov is just too soft with the puck, honestly. He also said that he hated the 3-on-3 overtime. So, I mean, I thought it's exciting, but I understand that it is a bit of a gimmick, but all of it's a gimmick. The shootout's even more of a
I can't
gimmick.
say it's a gimmick.
Absolutely.
It's a good way to,
But some
start
hockey
this
purists were either want 4-on-4 to go back to the way it was, what it used to
Right.
be for overtime in the regular season. But I thought that wasn't as good. I like either score more or go to the shootout. I think it's fine.
Well, I mean, they instituted it because they had a lot more shootouts, and with them going 3-on-3, there were less shootouts. They were, doing. I always watch NHL Network, and they were recovering that. I mean, covering that and reporting on it that last, with the 3-on-3 now that there are less shootouts because you do have much more intense action with the 3-on-3 and with the swing. If somebody makes a bad pass or doesn't change properly, it's a breakaway and normally a game and then goal. So the purpose of the going to 3-on-3 was so you wasn't having as many shootouts. So I mean, you're not going to please all the fans or please everybody, but I like the 3-on-3 also. I think it opens up the ice, it makes it wide open, and the fact that they've already played 60 minutes and they're tired from playing and they're still able to make those plays and do those things. And then if they can't get it done in 5 minutes, okay, go to the shootout. But in the playoffs it's sudden death, it's do or die. So, you get that in the regular season, but we all know the postseason is a different season. So, I mean, 4-on-4 is cool, but we saw that going to shootouts more often.
Yeah, they said or extend the OT to 7 minutes. So yeah, Carol was actually just before you may have come in said 8 minutes. So that's right around what we're talking about. I would be fine with 8 minutes. Hey, I want longer, whatever. But I would take 1 extra minute. So because sometimes I feel like it's just about to end in it, and
Yeah.
then it's
And
like it's
there's almost.
over, and then it's a shootout. I'm like, oh, it just feels like a tease at sometimes. But anyway, let's and then the last two games back to playing Buffalo, who seem suddenly to be beating the best team, quote unquote, in the division that people kind of thought going into the season. And Philly did look pretty good those first two games, but it's showing that any team can beat anybody on any given night. Philadelphia's got some people in the sin bin for tripping right now. They're down 5-0 with 6:40 left. And then I'm watching the Carolina-Nashville game. Carolina's up 2-1 on their new division rival, Nashville and Central, which is so weird. But some exciting stuff. I know my goal is to win 2 out of these 3. I'd hopefully beat Pittsburgh and hopefully steal one of these 2 home games against Buffalo. Obviously, in an ideal world, we win every game, right? I think we all would say that, but I think that's got to be try to get 4 or 5 points each week and just grind it out. Carol, what are your thoughts going into playing our first 2 home games, which would be against Buffalo?
As you mentioned, Pittsburgh, they have, play them, get back for the loss on Sunday in Buffalo. They're going to be out for revenge to try to get the 4 points that we took from them on their home ice. So the Cowboys know they're going to play their, best, hockey because they know they're going to come with their best. And depending on the matchups and, who might get the start and who might not get the start defensively, it's going to be interesting. Like we talked about, playing these same teams over and over again throughout the season. You're going to make adjustments, and you saw the 6-4 first game and then the 2-1 the second game. So you're going to have, swings like that. You're going to have momentum changes like that. And the folks that study the film are going to pick up on the tendencies of these teams if they play them so often. Like you mentioned, Robbie, they rarely did play the Buffalo maybe, 5 times in the season. Now they're playing them 8 times. And, so now that extra film study, extra knowledge is going to come in from watching what they do. So it's definitely going to be interesting. But I'm hoping the Caps with their 2 home games can hold, serve, and get the 4 points like they did in Buffalo.
Yeah, for sure. Anna, what are your thoughts on playing the newly resurgent Buffalo, at least according to tonight?
Well, I think it's going to be an interesting test for the Capitals, considering that this is, yes, we won those first 2 games, but here's that, hey, we're going to see these guys a bunch of other times, and maybe they change things up. Maybe they have a little bit more confidence. And what are the Capitals going to come out with on, whenever we play them Friday or whenever it is, Thursday, sorry, I think it is. But I do think that, when you do watch the previous games and you see, their tactics and what they do, that is where Laviolette is going to come in and say, here are things that we need to watch for. Here are things that we need to tighten up. And it'll be interesting to see if he changes any of the lines, or how that whole thing's going to work out. Because I think that first and second line they change a little bit, but it's okay. It's nothing, drastic. But I think he knows he's just looking for something that's going to tighten everything. And I've got faith in him.
So I'm looking at Buffalo Sabres schedule. They start off very interesting. It was the 2 at Washington, then 2 Philly, then 2 Washington again, right? Mm-hmm. So they're playing Philadelphia both tonight and tomorrow, and then they've got a couple of days off before they play us back-to-back, Friday and Sunday. Okay. So it keeps on saying Sunday is a 7:00 game, but I've seen a rumor, and I believe it to be true, that game has actually been rescheduled to earlier in the evening, and it's going to be a 4:00 in the afternoon game. And the reason this is because Buffalo's in the AFC Championship, and they didn't want to have the competing markets of an AFC Championship game with Buffalo finally in it, and the Capitals game. So and things have been moving around because of COVID, and so it's a little bit more of a fluid schedule this season. So I just wanted to let people know that if their DVR says 7, definitely double check to make sure that it might change to 4 or maybe earlier. So but I just wanted people to be aware, because I had heard that, and I do believe that would make a lot of sense. I mean, Absolutely. Why would you try to put who's going to watch Buffalo Caps? But it would be a great before the Buffalo fans to have those back to back would be exciting for them. So that makes a ton of sense. So I'll be interested to see if that gets picked up by NBC even, or or becomes. It's probably going to just be on Comcast locally. But anyway, so I just wanted to talk about how the schedule, because it's a little bit different for them. So they'll have a couple of days off, and we obviously play Pittsburgh tomorrow. And then we'll both have a couple of days off, and then it's that Friday and Sunday matchup. So
Yep.
it'll be an exciting week. So next week we'll talk about those same two teams again. I
Yes.
highly recommend people, if they want to hear more Anna Knox and more breakdown with Gil of all those games. They did a great job on the Power Play Point podcast. Click on the sportsothp.com podcast partners button. And if they click that button, you can get the Power Play Point podcast right there in the top left corner. And it's a great episode. I listened to it before I came on air today. I highly recommend it. Anna, any final thoughts before we let you go?
No. I think thank you again for a fun night, and looking forward to some playoff football, and looking forward to the Capitals winning tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully. That sounds
Definitely.
good.
All right. Have a great night, guys. I'll see you guys next week.
Sounds good.
Have a good night. Appreciate it as always.
Take care.
All right.
Watching the Vancouver Calgary game. Vancouver's up 1-0 on Calgary. They had a couple of chances. Calgary to tie the game, but the goaltender came up big to end our hockey.
Yeah, I also have NHL Network and NBC Sports on. It's a lot of hockey going on. This Montreal Edmonton game, 1-0 Montreal over Edmonton. It's going to be an interesting sort of new rivalry that'll reblossom from the old school roots of some old teams. It's kind of the North Division's a very interesting division, and obviously we're still watching this Buffalo domination of Philly. They're still up 5-0 towards the end of this game, which is exciting because
I turned that off. It's over.
yeah, well, it's important because if Philly had won that, they would have popped over us, and because Buffalo looks like they're going to win, I mean, at the end of the first week, after 3 games played by all the teams, that the Capitals will be with those 5 points the best. And one interesting thing to note is a lot of fans that's not good enough. There's a lot of goalie controversy. We didn't get into this with Anna, but just a lot of BS still hanging around where people are like, oh, do we really have a goalie? Is there still question marks?
Yeah, 3 games into the season, them folks need to pump their brakes and.
I know 5 points in 6 out of 6.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Man, just go play with their bobblehead that they got from the last game they went to or whatever, and just relax. It's 3 games into the season, man. But folks will be talking about they don't have a true. This is what trips me out about DC sports fans. And since we're about to get into football, it comes to the quarterback situation. I've seen a lot of posts talking about Deshaun Watson and trying to pick him up. Some folks even talking about Matthew Stafford. I'm like, you have 3 quarterbacks on the roster right now. Alex Smith still pondering retirement. You got Heineke and you got Allen. You don't necessarily need a so-called first-round draft pick or big name to be quarterback. You need a quarterback to develop, or you need a player to develop and get better at their craft at that position. If they excel, then great. But you don't always need a big name to add to the
They
team.
got 2 great guys. One was an AHL All-Star. You know what I mean? Like, what? Give him at least a couple of games. Let's see. I mean, what happens if he shuts out Pittsburgh next game? Boom, boom, boom. Then what are you saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not giving them time to develop. They had no offseason. Like,
it's just amazing. These folks. It's like if you knew more than the coach, you wouldn't be sitting on your couch typing on Facebook. That's all.
That's for sure. All right, let's get into some football, but I really appreciate the hockey talk, and we'll definitely have more. I'll definitely snip that up and make a hockey talk segment and release it to a bunch of cap streams. But I appreciate everyone for tuning in and commenting live with us. We're going to switch into football now. We're going to bring Brian Brennan and DC's People's Champ back on the show. There's the champ himself. I like how we both have our different Caps gear, Nats gear, DC's stuff there. I'll introduce Champ first. He does a great podcast, the No Spots podcast. It's a wrestling show, so if you need your wrestling stuff, go there. We'll talk more about that at the end of the segment. But did you enjoy your football weekend?
To be honest, I wasn't able to watch any of the Saturday games because of the 2 live streams I had to do on Saturday. So I didn't get to watch a lot of Saturday football, but I was able to catch a little bit of that great Chiefs Browns matchup, and was really enjoyed that one. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
And did you watch any of the Battle of the Goats?
I saw some of it. I saw some of it. I mean, I'm not surprised at the result. That's what I'll say is I wasn't surprised by the result, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I actually thought that New England was going to have Drew Brees right off into the sunset. But let me bring in Brian Brennan real quickly. Brian, did you get to watch any of the Saturday matchups?
Oh yeah, I saw every game this weekend. I loved all the football this weekend. It was awesome.
That's awesome. All right, sounds good. And Carol, which games did you get to see? So that way I can at least ask you about the.
Man, it was a blur. I got to see a little bit of all of them. Like I said, I was at work the whole time, but I had it streaming on my computer, so I was going in and out on all of them and checking them out. The Saints Tampa Bay game, I got to see a little bit of that. So I mean, it was just interesting to see how some of these games unfolded and some of the things that went down in these games. So we can definitely break them down real quick before we get to the NBA roundtable.
That sounds good. Let's break it down, and then we'll also really quickly preview the AFC and NFC Championship as well. So, Brian, you sounds like you saw the most of the Green Bay game out of all of us. So, I'm gonna have you start with that one. What was your thoughts on? Because I know that LA came in with a pretty good defense, but obviously Aaron Rodgers has been amazing all season, and this game wasn't as close as a lot of people predicted. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I actually think the score wasn't as close as the final score wasn't as close as it indicated. Even though the Packers won by 2 touchdowns, I thought it was for most of the game. Honestly, Green Bay I thought was just a much better team. Just occasionally they would make mistakes and that would cost them. But ultimately they made up for it. Like they had a wide receiver, Adam Lazard. He dropped what would have been a sure touchdown, but he made up for it later in the game with a 58-yard touchdown strike to basically put the game away. So yeah, even though I will give credit to Jared Goff, who played with a broken thumb in this game, the Packers were the better team, and I think they are, in my opinion, the best team in the NFC.
Carol, what are your thoughts on the Green Bay Packers? Because now they look like almost the odds-on favorite at this point. But I know that there's the GOAT is coming to town, but at the same time, Green Bay looks really deadly.
I'm on the record of saying how I think Aaron Rodgers is overrated. I think this team goes based on, he's quarterback MVP, Super Bowl champion, yada, yada, yada. But it goes based through the running game. And when they're running back, I think Aaron Jones, I think his name is, when he gets going, it opens the game up for him because then they start to have to account for him and bringing that eighth man down into the box, which opened things up. And Devontae Adams, I don't even know what else needs to be said when you just say his name. You already know what he's done this season and done throughout his career with Aaron Rodgers. That's why I think he's already for everybody say he hasn't had any help. He does it all by himself. No, he hasn't. He hasn't had a complete team, but he's had help to get him to where he is. And I just think he's overrated with, how they look at him with one Super Bowl ring. I mean, it is what it is, but it's going to be an interesting matchup between him and Tampa Bay because I don't know. I don't think there's going to be any penalties called on offensive linemen in either one of those in that game at all because we saw a lot of holding going on and things just didn't get called. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, I gotta fill my glass of water because I've gone through it. But while I do that, I want Champ to break down that Browns Chiefs game, some of his thoughts on that, and then I'll come back and give my thoughts on the next game after that.
Right. So listen, what I observed from this game was just how gritty and how tough Cleveland has shown itself to be this season. I mean, this was definitely a historic season for this franchise to be able to finally make the playoffs after almost 20 years. And then not only to make the playoffs, but then to win a playoff game and then to take the defending Super Bowl champions pretty much to the limit to the point that Chad effing Henne, I didn't even know he was still in the league, comes in relief of Mahomes, who went out with a concussion, and manages to keep them in that lead to end the game and move them to the AFC Championship game. Chad Henne, of all people. And even Mahomes was like, Mahomes had love for him too. He said, anything's possible. And I was like, gee, that was clever. That was awesome. But all in all, again, this game just showed just how tough that Cleveland can be, and I think this team's going to be a problem for the AFC in the next couple of years, as long as they don't lose any pieces on that team, like Baker Mayfield or like Nick Chubb. They'll get Odell Beckham back, and then there you go. This team's going to be a problem for the next couple of years. KC, they look like they were definitely on their heels against a very tough team like Cleveland, but I think that KC, this may have been their toughest test for KC. I think it might be a little bit, I won't say easier, but it won't be as tough as this game was for them.
Yeah, well, we're used to Kansas City putting up. We saw what they did last year. It was blowing everybody out. Now, when you get that championship, you're no longer the hunting or the hunter. You're the hunted. So, folks are going to bring their best game to them. And we saw that with Cleveland. Cleveland definitely has a good foundation. They finally found a coach that they decided to stick with, that they decided to put faith in. And, they have the two-headed monster in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So they're going to continue as long as they run the ball. Baker Mayfield's going to be able to do his thing, off the play action game. They get Beckham back, with some of the weapons they have offensively already. Yeah, they're definitely going to be, make some noise as you see with Pittsburgh, with Ben getting older. They got some young wide receivers, but they haven't really groomed a backup another quarterback for Ben, so they might take a little fall off. Cincinnati is rebuilding. They got a quarterback, but they got a lot of pieces of the field. Baltimore, we're going to talk about a little bit later on and how their season is up. So Cleveland's definitely on the up and up, and they're definitely looking to build off of this playoff season and go forward. Hopefully post COVID, have regular training camp and everything, and see how things go going forward. But they definitely have a good foundation. They got a taste of the playoffs, and at 11-5. That's a hell of a season for that team that went on 16 this year.
Yeah, I want to bring in the last member of our roundtable. It's just going to be the voice of Arun. I'm going to bring him in next to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. I know he's always on RG3 watch. So he was, I believe, waived today. Any update on that, Arun? And what about the Baltimore game?
Oh, yeah. I've been reading a lot of RG3 material in preparation for this moment. New England, apparently the bloggers are asking if Bill Belichick should consider RG3. And also, I saw Prime MD from Twitter. He's saying, bring RG3 back home to Washington, D.C. And another Heisman Trophy guy released. He was, along with Mark Ingram, was released. So maybe instead of like Carol's saying, we shouldn't parade players like we did for RG3. Well, RG3 is available just off the scrap heap for Washington side, along with maybe Colt McCoy, possibly as another option. Or, I don't know, Alfred Morris, bring the whole team back together. Bring Bo Callahan back. Maybe they can make him OC. Jay Grunen's also unemployed right now.
Oh, Jay got fired?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Urban Meyer coming in now that he got fired. I didn't see the official announcement because I said that he should never get a job in the NFL again. I was surprised that Jacksonville hired him, but now that Urban Meyer's down there, he's probably gonna be out of work again. He needs to go back to the CFL or something.
Maybe he could just be the RG3 coach, not even like an official position on Washington.
I mean, it's I don't even know. RG3 going. You mentioned Belichick. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting because if he can go up there and Belichick put his mojo on him and he actually, because I don't feel like he's played bad. He just had fluke stuff happen to him, man. It's just crazy some of the stuff that happened to him on the field. But that would be interesting if RG3 go to Belichick. I would love to see that, to see how the hoodie would try to, save his career. That would be very interesting.
Yeah. He didn't save Tim Tebow's career, but RG3 maybe Heisman Trophy winners more talented.
Tebow, come on now. Come on now. Tebow was some cut. I'm sorry. He had a good team. He had a great team around him that allowed him to do some of the things that he did. But Tebow wasn't a real quarterback. RG3 has enough quarterback skills that if he gets a chance to develop and not get himself hurt, I felt like he could still be a service or maybe backup come in to relieve somebody. But it's just like it's always fluke stuff that happens there. I just don't get it. Like he did some bad. Well, he did do some festive stuff to his ex-wife, but there might be karma coming back at his ass. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? All right, I think we've satisfied the RG3 update crowd.
We had to fill out our RG3 quota for the month. Everyone hasn't spoken about it, so we had to fill our quota for the month.
Right, exactly. So Arun, the game that he didn't get to play in, and maybe they kind of wish that he was on the roster for because they lost their quarterback. You know, but I thought that their backup played decently. You know, after the concussion. Arun, walk us through your thoughts on this really tough game with Buffalo.
Yeah, I thought it was really close, like in the first half, due to all the missed field goals by Justin Tucker. His eyes got pretty big after all those misses. But I think the Bills they had more passing weapons in this game, like Stephon Diggs. Like imagine if Diggs was on the Ravens, then maybe Hollywood Brown hasn't really stepped up to that role as a playmaker. Lamar Jackson, he threw that pick six, which led to a 100-yard interception return. That's obviously put the game pretty much out of reach. And when Lamar Jackson left, Hundley came in. And at that point, Robbie, as you pointed out in the group chat, the game seemed like it was pretty out of reach at that point. And Buffalo, it was surprising. It was like 3-3, like at the half. I thought it was going to be a more high scoring game, more high tempo, but it's not really that surprising that Buffalo was able to pull out the win.
Yeah, I was really impressed.
I got to speak on this. I actually did watch some of this game. This is actually the game I saw the most of. We got to give credit to Josh Allen. That dude is developing to a quality NFL quarterback, and he has that team playing some good ball offensively. You mentioned Stephon Diggs, who broke the record for receptions and yards as a first year with the Buffalo Bills when he went to Buffalo. I know a lot of us are scratching our heads, thinking about, cold weather. They don't really throw the ball. Why was he going up there? Well, we definitely saw why he's going up there. So you got to give a credit and shout out to them too. Getting chemistry along with the other weapons they have on offense. And Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, there's been that question mark about him winning playoff games, and that unfortunate injury. I saw when he got hurt, but I didn't see how he got hurt. I didn't get a chance to look at the rewind or whatever. But it's unfortunate he had a concussion along with Mahomes had a concussion in his game. But Baltimore, I don't know. It's like they have it, but they still don't. It's like I think they're still missing a big time wide receiver.
Yeah, they need a second wide receiver to go with Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, I know. And with Andrews, a tight end, he was having a good game and a great season. But they have to have somebody to answer on the other end. Buffalo definitely, answered that. You mentioned that pick six. I don't know what Jackson was looking at because I saw the whole play develop, and I don't know what he was looking at. But yeah, that was definitely a momentum killer for that team. That pick six to put it to 17-3, and so they didn't score again. So it was definitely interesting. I did take Buffalo. I was thinking Baltimore will win, but I was thinking with Josh Allen, the season that he's had and the things that he's been able to do with this offense, that it's going to be a very interesting AFC Championship.
Yeah, it's really close. We're doing a pick 'em, so a lot of us can sort of battle it out to see how they're doing. It's gotten pretty close. My father-in-law Tommy is leading the pack right now, but it's tied with the voice of Arun that we're hearing right now with 220. Then right behind him, Dujanay with 190. DC's People's Champ right there at 180. I got 170. CP3's got 150, Hurt 140, and so that's for the leaderboard.
My postseason hasn't been as impressive as my regular season.
It's tough because there's like all these prop bets that you gotta bet on. Where it's
a lot different.
Yeah, but it's kind of fun. It's interesting. There
are a lot more this week. It's like getting kind of crazy.
They just announced the prop bets actually right while we were on air, so I actually see what they're going to be. They are kind of nuts, but it'll be interesting to see how that ends up going. So we'll let people know in our
the most rushing yards with the ball in their right hand.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it's been fun to play along with you guys. It's been an interesting couple of games. We have got one more game to break down, the Battle of the Old Dudes. I have to say, I was really impressed by Tom Brady after the game going and playing ball with Drew Brees' kids on the field and giving Drew Brees' kids one last shot at the Superdome, because Drew Brees is probably retiring. That's all the signs are. I mean, he wouldn't have gone out and done all this with them. And so it's cool that they got to have this moment with the two greatest of all time. They've been battling for all these records. Would go out there and spend some time with his family. They obviously know each other and have great respect for each other. And I thought that was really cool because it's the third game of the battle, and Drew Brees won the first two, and they got the home field advantage here. But unfortunately, Tom Brady, I thought just at the end, the Buccaneers came on strong, but it was pretty even throughout the game. I mean, it was 13-13 at halftime. Then they each scored 7 in the third. Then the Buccaneers scored 10, and the Saints just didn't score anymore. But it was a really great game. I'm going to let Brian give his thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this matchup. Like you said, it's the GOAT matchup. And they're two guys. They're coming to the end of their careers. Obviously, Drew Brees' career is probably over after this loss. But, it's just exciting to see these two guys go at it anytime they play. And I thought the Saints were going to win this game. I picked them because the game was in New Orleans. But in the second half, really, Tampa Bay was much better than New Orleans. They scored 17 unanswered points to turn a 7-point deficit into a 10-point win. And their defense just absolutely made Drew Brees look awful. Part of the reason I think Drew Brees it's not 100% done is because of how badly he played in this game. This might leave such a bad taste in his mouth. They might want to come back, but he's clearly not the same quarterback he once was. And like you said, Robbie, just to close out, I loved seeing Tom Brady and Drew Brees on the field together at the end with Drew Brees' kids, Tom Brady throwing passes. That's really cool to see. Just the mutual respect. That was kind of a recurring theme from all the games this weekend, whether it was Bills fans donating to Lamar Jackson's charity after he was concussed or this. It was just a lot of really good things to see this week in the league. So I really like that. And congrats to Tampa Bay on advancing in this game.
Sounds good. Carol, do you have any thoughts on the Battle of the Goats?
I'm actually watching the rebroadcast right now on NFL Network. I saw some of the game. I still have a bad taste in my mouth from the Washington football team in Tampa. If you watch some of the stuff that I posted, you saw some blatant holes that I went back and screenshot onto my page. I just feel like that they're trying to write the narrative for Tom Brady to go out, on top and retire the greatest all time and wouldn't be able to win without Belichick. So, I mean, granted, Brees threw 3 interceptions, but I'm just not sold on Tampa for real. I think if they call the game evenly and don't overrate that offensive line and let them get pressure on Brady, the other team, whoever they're playing, then it's a whole different ball game. So I think that Green Bay definitely has a shot at upsetting them, because as long as they can get pressure and run the ball, they're going to be all right. I know I'm getting ahead of myself with the predictions, but damn it, I'm rooting for Green Bay, and you know how much I hate Aaron Rodgers.
Right. Interesting. Okay, let's actually just get into the championship games at this point, just for time, because I kind of want to be out of here by 10:30. It's 10:30 now, but we'll go for a couple more minutes, and then we'll give a quick Wizards talk. There's not a whole lot to talk about, to be honest. So we'll start off in the NFC, because we talk more NFC on this podcast usually. So it's going to be an interesting battle. Two of the best all time. I know that Carol doesn't think Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, he's talks to be MVP this year, and he's looked pretty good, especially after drafting his potential replacement. I saw a side-by-side earlier that had Brett Favre's numbers the year that Aaron Rodgers was drafted and how terrible they were. And then this is supposedly them drafting the future and Aaron Rodgers' response to the exact same scenario towards the end of his career. And the numbers are pretty ridiculous. And he's put up some pretty great numbers.
You got to throw an asterisk by that. They protect the quarterback a lot more than from when Brett Favre was playing the game.
That's very true. But it's still interesting to see that the win losses and him battling potentially for a Super Bowl versus not even making the playoffs. But I mean, I see what you're saying. Let's start off with that. So, Carol, you said you're rooting for Green Bay, but who do you think is going to? Let's do it for everybody. Who are you rooting for, and who do you think is going to win? And I'll start with Carol.
I'm rooting for Green Bay. I believe the game is in Green Bay,
It is.
and I believe that's going to play a factor with the temperature. Brady's used to New England temperatures, but the rest of the Tampa Bay team isn't. I feel like that's played, it was a little chilly up here when they played here.
It's going to
I
be
think,
22 degrees at game time.
so I think that weather will play a factor, and depends on how lenient the referees are for Tampa Bay's offensive line. With Aaron Rodgers, the way that he's, been able to get this team to come back from different adversity, and the running game that they have with Jones, I think that the Green Bay should be able to win this game, because Fournette with Tampa Bay, he's definitely a battering ram, but he can be contained, as I say, as long as the refs are calling the even game.
So here's some interesting fun facts. So the 5 seed is Tampa Bay. The 1 seed is Green Bay, right? So no team has ever played in their home arena or home field for the Super Bowl. This year, the Super Bowl is in Tampa Bay. So they could, if they win, play in Tampa Bay as the road team, I believe, because they would have the worst record of the two teams. And that would be really interesting because it would be the first time ever. Because that's a possibility, and I'm actually rooting, and it's weird, I've never rooted for Tom Brady, but because of how cool he was with Drew Brees, I'm rooting for him. I definitely think Green Bay is going to win, because I don't think they're going to want to let a team play their home field. So I think Green Bay is going to win, but I think Tampa Bay is who I want to win, which is a weird thing for me to say. Champ, what are your thoughts?
Right. So in our pick'em, I actually picked Green Bay, and I am rooting for Green Bay. Nothing against Tampa Bay, but I will say that the narrative that was set with this season is that Tom Brady is not a system quarterback, because he was in a completely new system and still was successful. Yeah, he might have had some help here and there along the way, but for the most part, he was successful in a different system. So that just shows that Tom Brady is actually a legit GOAT in terms of quarterbacks. But I honestly feel like in the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, A-Rod and that team are going to do what they have to do to make it to the Super Bowl and make it to warm Tampa Bay to get themselves a chance at another Super Bowl ring for those cheeseheads out there. So I'm picking Green Bay, and I'm rooting for Green Bay. That's just the bottom line of that.
So the most lopsided loss that Green Bay has had all season is a 38-10 drubbing by Tampa Bay this year when they played. Now this game was played in Tampa Bay. So that's a different story, right? We're going to agree on that. But I just wanted to throw that out into the mix with that. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was actually going to point that out, that like you said, Green Bay's worst loss this season was to Tampa Bay. But I think this is going to be a different game. I think the Packers are clicking on all cylinders at the right time, and that they are the best team in the NFC. Aaron Rodgers is going to be the MVP this season. And like Carol said, Aaron Jones is just a huge weapon as well for the Packers. But really, it's all about Rodgers. He's just been great all year for them. And I don't see them losing a game in cold Green Bay, 20-degree day. Now, I know Tom Brady's played a lot of cold weather games in the past, but I just think Lambeau's a different animal, and I like the Packers in this one.
Yeah. So, interesting. There was a turnover in this hockey game and a shorthanded goal by the Arizona Coyotes over the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas was on the power play, and beautiful. They came up ice and turned into a 2-on-1 and a beautiful goal. That game is over on NBC Sports Network. 120 left on that Vegas power play that is seeming to go the wrong direction. All right, Arun, real quickly, your thoughts on the NFC Championship game?
Yeah, I'm leaning slightly towards the Packers. I think it's going to be a close game. Carroll alluded to Aaron Jones, like he's probably the difference maker in this one. Fournette did somehow he played a little bit better than Alvin Kamara, but I think the Packers with Aaron Rodgers under center, they can make adjustments. Tampa Bay was you alluded to the Tampa Bay beating Green Bay earlier in the season. The Saints beat the Bucks twice earlier, so I don't know. Regular season matters, but maybe it's not like going to be the deciding factor.
It's true. It's also really hard to beat a team 3 times, as it would be if you only faced them once in the regular season. I mean, I think the New England Patriots know that from the Giants back in the day. They were able to beat them in the regular season, but when it mattered in the Super Bowl or a championship game, it didn't work out that way. All right, let's talk about a different New York team, the Buffalo Bills, who have been my sort of surprise, and I love their story, and I love them raising the money I was earlier mentioned for Lamar Jackson, for a charity that Lamar Jackson supports. It'll help feed 2,000 children because of what Buffalo was able to do in his honor, which I thought was really impressive. And they're kind of the feel-good story. They're the team that I'm rooting for in this, just because Kansas City got its turn in the spotlight last year. So for me, I'm pulling for the Bills, but it obviously depends on if Mahomes plays. If Mahomes plays, I think Kansas City wins because it's in Kansas City. If Mahomes doesn't play, although they have a serviceable backup quarterback, as we saw this week, which was a surprise, I think it's going to be too much. I wish the game was in Buffalo. I love the games in Buffalo because of the atmosphere that they were able to do. I was actually kind of rooting for the Browns to beat Kansas City because I was hoping that the Browns would have to go to Buffalo. That didn't happen. So for me, I think Kansas City is going to win, but I'm rooting for Buffalo. Carol, what are your thoughts?
This might be my upset pick of the season right here. Even if Mahomes is healthy or not healthy, I'm going with the Buffalo Bills as they
Ooh,
make their way
Bills
back
Mafia.
for the first time since the 90s. I think that Josh Allen has this offense playing well. The defense causes turnovers, plays the run well, and I don't know if they can match up with Kansas City, especially in Kansas City. But I'm going to take this as my upset pick of the week. I don't know if I'm gonna take it on my pick 'em, but I'm gonna take it right now. And I'm gonna. I think Buffalo. I think with what they got going on, with all they did with winning the NFC East, sweeping the Patriots, sweeping, I believe, they swept the whole division. And Josh Allen developed into the quarterback that that he is becoming, going to be get better. Stephon Diggs doing his thing. My gut is going with Buffalo. I still think Kansas City is probably the better team, but I'm going to jump out there and take Buffalo for the win on the road to advance to the Super Bowl.
All right, some quick stats before I go to the panel just to get their thoughts on this. They did play earlier in the season, the Chiefs at the Bills. The Chiefs won that game 26-17 in Buffalo. Mahomes went for 225 with 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So he was a big factor in their win. So I definitely think if he plays, it could have a huge effect. Allen only had 122 yards, 2 touchdowns, which is good, and an interception. Rushing, there was 161 yards for Kansas City. So obviously that was a big part of their game that day. So obviously containing both the rushing attack and the quarterback would be key. I think Buffalo is a better team than when this was. I mean, this was towards the beginning of the season. It was week 6. But again, that was in Buffalo and they lost. So I definitely think it'll be interesting to see if revenge happens or what. We'll start off with Champ. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Okay, first and foremost, I want to address that, Carol. This is not your upset pick of the season because you picking Washington football team on Pittsburgh was the upset of the season. So let's get that straight right now. Number one.
I saw that one coming.
Right. Okay. So, in my pick 'em, I actually picked KC in this one. Mahomes will most likely be healthy. There are reports coming out that he's fine. He's fine. They just held him out for that game for the rest of that game with Henny, which is a bit questionable. You're down 5 and you're going with a backup that's in his mid-30s in a critical spot when you have your young gun that was clearly apparently fine, but they didn't put him out there to finish the game. So you got to think about that right there. But I'm going with KC because their offense is just so dynamic. I mean, Bills, they have Josh Allen, who is just absolutely amazing this year. But they only have, like, when you think about their weapons in receiver, you only think about Stephon Diggs. Whereas with KC, you think about Travis Kelce, you think about Tyreek Hill, you think about all of that, and you think about the maneuverability of Mahomes, especially if he's healthy. So I'm going with the Chiefs on this one. I feel like the Chiefs are going to make it back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. I'm not going to say if they're going to make it back-to-back Super Bowl wins, but I think they're going to make back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. That's my pick. KC all the way.
And are you rooting for KC as well? Are you?
Yes, yes, I am reluctantly because, and I said it to you guys in the group chat earlier, that I think that the Bills Mafia is the best fan base in all of football after what they did for Lamar Jackson's charity after he got hurt during that game. I think that is absolutely amazing. But I got to go with KC. It just makes more sense to me. I got to go with KC, pick them wise, and I got to root for them in that sense.
Brian, what are your thoughts? Who are you rooting for? Who do you think is going to win?
I'm definitely rooting for the Bills because I'm from New York, even though Buffalo might as well be in Canada compared to where I'm from in New York. I am from the same state as the Buffalo Bills.
Nothing wrong with Canada, Brian. I've been to
No, I'm not dissing Canada. I'm just saying Buffalo might as well be in Canada compared to where
I've been to
from
Buffalo
in New York.
a few times. Buffalo's pretty nice. Well,
no, yeah, I almost went to college in Buffalo. Like, I have respect for Buffalo, but at the same time, it's 8 hours away from where I'm from. That's what I'm trying to say. But as far as this game goes, I think it all comes down to Mahomes' health. If Mahomes is good to go in this game, I think Kansas City should win. They already beat the Bills earlier this season. So I think it's but Buffalo is playing since that game, Buffalo, I believe, is 10-1. So this is a tough game to choose. But if Mahomes is playing, I think I'm going to go with the Chiefs. They just seem like the best team. Like, we saw how good they were playing yesterday when Mahomes was out there. I mean, Cleveland had no answers, and I don't see the Bills having much of an answer for Mahomes if he's good to go.
All right, Arun, who are you rooting for? Who do you think is going to win in this AFC?
I'm actually also rooting for the Chiefs, mostly because of Mahomes. I kind of want him to get multiple Super Bowl rings. I think the Chiefs are going to win. It's going to be, I think it's up to, as Brian said, it's up to Patrick Mahomes' health. If he's concussed, the Bills defense did already slow down Lamar Jackson. Everyone's saying that he's really bad now, but maybe the Bills defense is actually really good. Kansas City doesn't really have a running game to speak of with Clyde Edwards-Helaire out, and I don't think Le'Veon Bell really played much of a factor against the Browns. But I think, as Ken said, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, that beats whatever Buffalo has. Even though I think John Brown and Cole Beasley are pretty good options, I think Kansas City gets it done. But if Mahomes is like 80%, then I don't think the Chiefs are going to win.
Got it. All right. Well, I think we've broken it down enough. Carol, any final thoughts of this football segment before we do a quick Wizards roundtable for like 5-10 minutes?
Nah, I'm about to just sit back in the cut. Gotta go empty the bladder, and I'll let you gentlemen take over for the roundtable on the NBA, and I'll go ahead and shut my camera down. And I'm gonna just leave the football feed up on my feed. If you want to check out NBA stuff you can check it out on Robbie's feed.
All right, before you disappear, well, after you turn off your camera, I'm gonna go full screen for just a second. So I just wanted to let you know about that. Just because I want to show one thing. Hold on, here we go. All right, we're gonna go live. There we go, and then we're gonna bring in Arun real quickly, also on video camera, and then Carol, I think you have to turn off your camera on Zoom as well.
Yeah, give me a quick second. You're doing stuff a little fast for me, right?
No, I'm
right,
quick.
there we go.
I'm quick with the buttons. All right. There we go. Last we left, last Monday, The Washington Wizards were crushing the Phoenix Suns. At the time, they dominated the first quarter, which we covered 29-15. They really dominated the second, 39-27. In the third, it was even 36-all. The Suns kind of made a little bit of a dent by scoring 29 points in the fourth, but by that point, the Wizards had amassed 128 points to the 107 for the Phoenix Suns. Some of the big-time scorers was Bradley Beal, Neto, Bertans played pretty well. Garrison Matthews is playing pretty well. And if you remember, we were playing without Westbrook. And but yeah, Bradley Beal went off. He was 8, 9, and 34 points. So I'm just gonna go around the horn to ask any final thoughts on this game, and then we'll talk about the week that did not happen for the Wizards. Champ, any final thoughts on this game before we move on?
This was a statement made by the Washington Wizards. And I said it on last week's show, they were pissed off. They were highly pissed off at what they put together before coming into this game. And it was because of that they came in here and they absolutely whomped on a very susceptible Suns team. When you have this type of scoring output combined with not very strong defense, but good enough defense to be able to keep them at bay, this was a statement right here. I just hate the fact that we're now going on almost 10 days since this before they play another game. But this was a statement for this team, and this was a statement to let everybody know, hey, this team can do something in the East once they can start getting it rolling. And that was what that statement was.
Right. So before that game, they were on a major losing streak. I'm gonna pull up, see if I can pull this correctly. I don't know why it was offset. There we go. They were supposed to play a bunch of games, and then that we were supposed to get back into this season, because before this, if people remember, they'd lost 3 games in a row. Then they have the sort of this next part of it, which is not even showing anymore because they've had to be rescheduled, but we were supposed to play Utah, Detroit, Cleveland twice, and then Charlotte on Wednesday. So we're supposed to play Utah on Wednesday the 13th, Detroit Friday the 15th, Cleveland twice on Sunday and Monday, both 2:00, and then Charlotte this upcoming Wednesday at 7. And all those games get postponed due to COVID. With 3 games in a row, we had contact with COVID exposed players. Potentially, they don't know where it started. Potentially, some of the coaches on the Wizards have it. Up to 7 players are now being reported to have it. So
last I heard, Robbie, it was 7 players tested positive and 1 staff member has tested positive.
Yeah. So and new ones are being found every day. That was a new update as today, I believe. So it's going to be interesting. Brian, what are your thoughts about COVID and the NBA in general, and how it's impacting, obviously, the Wizards from an outsider's perspective?
I really think that, the way the NBA handled the bubble was incredible. And I think to ask them to do something like that again was a big ask, especially the way they've decided to go about the season. I personally would not have done it this way. I personally think the NBA should have adopted a similar style to what the NHL is doing, where they're keeping it kind of regional. And instead of traveling for example, the Knicks are going to the West Coast, which I'm not thrilled about for these late games. I just don't think there's any point in traveling all the way to the West Coast this season when there's a pandemic going on. And just when it comes to the Wizards, I mean, you mentioned it, Robbie, like every team before the Suns game, they had some sort of COVID issue. So it's honestly not too surprising. I think what is surprising is how long it's gone on for now. Instead of just 1 game postponed, it's been basically 10 days worth of games postponed for the Wizards, which is crazy. This is the biggest outbreak in the season so far, because most teams have only had like 1 or 2 games postponed at the most. This is 10 days worth of games for the Wizards. So I'm not a Wizards fan, but I understand all your guys' frustration. This has to be really frustrating to deal with. You want to watch your team for sure, but we'll see how the NBA handles the COVID the rest of the way. I don't think a break would be a bad idea. Like a 7 to 14 day pause of the season would be the worst idea in the world if things continue to be this bad. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough thing for sure. I mean, so we've got 5 games that we've lost, and they've got to somehow reschedule. There's already a lot of back-to-back games. We don't know if all of them will even be able to be made up, depending on how they shuffle the schedule.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think a good portion of these games are gone. I don't think they're gonna be rescheduled.
And it sucks because we talked about it. Some of those were very winnable. So this can put us way behind the 8 ball and trying to climb out of this hole that we're in. Because now the next game is against the Bucks, when it could have been a Utah or Detroit or Cleveland or Charlotte, which are all more winnable, arguably, than the Bucks. And after the Bucks, you have to play the Spurs, then the Rockets and the Pelicans. But and also not playing for a week. Yeah, how's the conditioning going to be? I mean, it's going to be tough to try to get back into it, especially if they finally got a win after 3 weeks of a loss. So, Arun, break it down for us. What do you think the impact is? Do you think that there's even a chance the Wizards can make the playoffs? Is this going to really have a long-term implications on the team throughout the season? Is there going to be a ripple effect? Arun, I think you're muted.
Arun, you're muted, bro.
Yeah, hold on, let me see.
Yeah,
There
my video turned off anyways.
All right, well, there you go. Well, there you go. Now you're on end of it. Okay, so what were you saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that because the Wizards haven't been playing, they still aren't really out of it, because the Hawks, who are the 8th seed, are only 2 games ahead of the Wizards. 3 teams in the Eastern Conference race are actually below 500 at this point. So the Wizards still can make the playoffs. Yeah, they come back against the Bucks, but the Spurs, the Rockets, and the Pelicans, those are all winnable games. But for the Wizards, they just simply have to take care of business at this point of the season, especially with the slow start. They started off 2-8 in 2016 and 17. They also started off 2-8 this season, but let's see if they can rebound. Otherwise, Scott Brooks is going to be out of the job.
Yeah, this mess up may cost him his job, because this is kind of his last shot at it. And Westbrook going down, getting injured, and this COVID outbreak. I mean, it's just going to start to pile up after a while, which is unfortunate. I mean, I know some people aren't even a big Scott Brooks fans, and some people are wishing for him to be fired at this point. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. So we have 2 games coming up, supposedly. That's assuming that they can get out of this COVID protocol, which I'm not sure they're going to be able to, with 7 players still in it. But for now, there's a game scheduled on Friday at 8 against the Bucks, and on Sunday at 7. So they have back-to-back games Sunday at 7 against the Spurs. So both would be on the road. Champ, what are your thoughts on the Bucks and Spurs?
Okay, so this is the issue. Number one, by the time they actually get to this game against the Bucks, it will have been over 10 days since their last game. It'll be 11 days since their last game. So you have to wonder, as mentioned already, about conditioning, being able to go out there and play 30 plus minutes if you're one of the top guys that's out there. So you're going up against a team like the Bucks, who's one of the top teams in the East. It doesn't look good for them, and you're on the road. And then you have to turn around 2 days later and go up against the Spurs. Will you have Westbrook back for these 2 games? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. Are you going to have Westbrook back? Are you going to have Beal? Are you gonna have a third center, because you already let go of Pasnicek this week? So you only have Robin Lopez and you have Mo Wagner. So you only have 2 centers you're bringing into this. I don't have a lot of confidence when it comes to these next 2 games, because again, you're on 11. You'll be 11 days since your last game, and you got all these questions. I feel like this team's going to go 0-2.
Yeah,
I feel
Brian.
like they're going to go 0-2.
Brian, what are your quick thoughts?
Well, I mean, first off, we need to see if these games are actually going to be played. And once we know that, if they are going to be played, we need to know who's going to be available for the Wizards, how shorthanded they're going to be going into these games. But either way, I agree with Ken. These are not favorable matchups at all, especially the one against Milwaukee. Milwaukee is the top team in the East. They've got the two-time MVP. Middleton, Holiday, they are a great team. I agree. If the Wizards play these games, and that's still a big if, I think it'll be an 0-2 week.
And Arun, your final thoughts?
Yeah, at this point, I don't even think the Bucks game is going to happen, just based on the 7th test that happened, the 7th positive member of the Wizards that happened. Perhaps a Spurs game and Rockets game can happen because Texas, they don't even care about COVID. But I think the Spurs is the most winnable game. They actually lost to the Houston Rockets without James Harden recently, so they're not the championship caliber team that they used to be. If the Wizards are going to make a run for the playoffs, they definitely have to win that Spurs game. And if they do play the Bucks, they'd probably lose that game.
Got it. All right. Since we're running low on time, I'm going to give Arun your final thoughts. I'm going to end out of this share screen. And Arun, give your final take, and we'll see you maybe next week to talk more Wizards and how the championship football games went.
Yeah, it was good seeing Alex Smith on 60 Minutes yesterday. Washington football team fans should check that out. Tom Brady gave him some encouraging words, also closing out that game. And a final RG3 note, RG3 did seek out advice from Tom Brady, but he turned it down. But Tom Brady said he wanted to remain the competitive edge between RG3 and him back in 2015, which is pretty amazing.
Did RG3 ask him for like housing advice in New England, the New England area?
No, just QB. He wanted to pick his brain. Tom Brady was like, "No, I don't want the mental edge," or maybe I don't know. I guess he was really worried about RG getting a mental edge.
I hate you.
Oh man, more RG3 facts always. All right, thank you, Arun. I appreciate it. We're gonna move on to Champ. Let us know what's happening in the No Spots podcast this week.
Oh, we got a lot going on. Like I said, this past Saturday, we did 2 streams. We had the stream for episode 95, and then we talked about and did a live stream for Hard to Kill for Impact. So on this episode, we're going to recap Impact. We're going to talk a little bit about New Japan. They're on their first tour since Wrestle Kingdom. And we're going to talk about what's going on this week in wrestling. Apparently, from what I've seen online, Randy Orton is on some other stuff, and we're going to talk about it. So make sure you check out the No Spots podcast live stream this coming Saturday on our Facebook page at 5 p.m. Eastern time.
That sounds good. Definitely check it out. We don't have enough time to talk a lot of wrestling here, but we love you breaking it down on your show. Again, SportsOTHP.com. Click the podcast partners button. Click No Spots podcast, and you get a lot more of Ken, DC's People's Champ, and his thoughts on all the different world of wrestling. So thank you as always, and we'll talk to you next week on Wizards Talk.
Yes, indeed. I'll see you guys next week.
All right, Brian. Thank you for giving us your outsider's perspective as you always do. Anything happening this week upon further review with Brian Brennan?
Well, first, before we go, because I didn't get a chance to say it, I want to give a shout out to the Nationals for signing Jon Lester. I think that's a great signing for them. I think he's going to be really big for your rotation. And also, shout out to the new DC United manager, Hernan Losada, hired today as well. So some big news there in the Navy Yard area for the Nationals and DC United. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no problem. And as far as my podcast goes, new episode released today. No guests on today's episode, but it was just basically me recapping the divisional round, talking about every game. Then I talk a little bit about some of the moves the Yankees have made, which I'm also really excited about, obviously, as a Yankee fan. So it's a pretty good episode. Stay tuned for Friday's episode. Arun will be on, and so will Mike and Tim, as we continue our sorry to steal the roundtable thing, but we've been doing a football roundtable for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
and
go
we're
for
going to be doing it again this Friday for this Friday's episode. So stay tuned for that.
Yep, we don't own the market on roundtables. I will. I did not invent it, unfortunately.
You didn't trademark it or anything.
Did not yet. So we appreciate it as always, Brian, for breaking all that down. And definitely people can check out upon further review with Brian Brennan. Click the podcast partners button, click that, and boom, latest podcast will be right there. So appreciate it as always, Brian. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a good night, guys.
All right. Take it easy, man.
All right, sounds good. All right, Carol, I know we went over. I tried, but we just too much sports to talk about. Too many good things or bad, depending on the COVID Wizards things. But the Caps played well. Excited for this upcoming week. Hopefully, the Wizards will actually get to play a game this week. And that's all I've got. But thank you for doing the show with me.
No problem. Yeah, we were trying to do an hour and a half and ended up 2 hours anyway. But hey, it's all good. It's what we do. It's what we bring you the best DC sports coverage around. Make sure you go check out the website, SportsOTHP.com, for all of our shows archived, for the links to the other podcast partners, to the Sports OTHP apparel line. You got the hoodies, you got the pillows, the coffee mugs, the backdrops, all of that good stuff. Or you can hit me up for the Sports OTHP apparel with partnering up with Eric Kluser. I actually rocked the sweatsuit yesterday. I forgot to get pictures at the bar radio because we had a little bit too much fun at the bar. So, excuse me, be on the lookout. We got some more apparel coming.
I'm wearing my comfy sweatshirt. It's been awesome. I wore it all day. So I see that you're wearing yours. I highly recommend them. You can get them in 2 different colors.
I take my dog outside to put the hoodie on. And if you're looking for a new, used, pre-owned certified vehicle, make sure you hit me up, inbox me, or come on down to Waldorf Honda down in Waldorf, 2450 Crane Highway. Got all the deals, got all the cars. Come on down there and holler at me. Make sure you get the best of available. I'm going to end the show with, as always, with Renegade. Stay tuned. We got some more videos coming. I got to hit up 151 with some of the stuff we play on at the bar. I'm going to start playing at the end of the show on here so you can check them out. Some very good independent artists out there. I got some stuff. I'm going to have artists from Sri Lanka. We actually have somebody send us music from Sri Lanka. And
it's pretty fire.
Video. I just can't remember the name of it, so I got to wait for 151 to play it tonight. Once he send me the name of it, I can put it in the joint. But I'm going to start bringing a different feel to the end of the show with some of the independent music we play on Sunday nights. I'll bring it to Monday night also. And I always tell folks, if you got somebody that's interested in music, whatever, hit me up. Go to the Sports OTHB inbox. Go to my page, Carol Porter III with 3 eyes. Inbox me. I send you my email. Send me an MP3. Send it to 151, the music director, at the bar radio host. We play the videos, we play the music, we critique it, and we do interviews. So feel free to hit me up if you're trying to branch out in that other avenues. But I'm ready to get out of here because it's been a long day.
I want to mention before we leave, though, about Martin Luther King Day. I know that we didn't address it at the top, but he's an important guy in our history. And, we often take it off, but we felt there was so much news to cover. Obviously, went 2 hours. We didn't want to take it off, but I do have great reverence for the Dr. Martin Luther King, and I hope that people found a way to celebrate in his honor today, was able to maybe give back to the community or do something. And if they haven't, what my school is doing and what I hope other people do is, if you didn't get to do it today, there's still a lot of time in this world. Do it sometime this week, and find an opportunity to give back to somebody who needs it, especially in this world right now.
No doubt. Very, very, very well spoken. I really don't get into politics too much on this show, but it's a lot of things going on in this country right now. We got the inauguration coming up, city on lockdown, metro shutting down because of some of the stuff that happened in the previous week, and they're afraid is going to happen coming up in the inauguration of this so-called uprising or insurgence or insurrection or whatever you want to call it. But it all comes down to people. We got to communicate with each other. We got to love each other and start talking about the differences and figuring out what they are, instead of just hating or not liking somebody because they don't look like you and they don't believe the same thing as you, don't think the same way that you do. And
that's how this show started. We're two people from very, very different backgrounds who may have never connected, but we wanted to talk sports and share that with all the fans in the DC area. I'm a small Jewish white guy, and you're a big black guy. You wouldn't have thought us the dynamic duo, but 5 years into it, we've been able to create a whole entire empire and a whole group and a following, and we really appreciate all the 2,000 followers that follow us every week. And it proves that anybody can reach across the aisle, no matter what their differences are, and find common ground and work together to make this world a better place.
Well, true. Well, we have way more than 2,000 followers. That's just on our show page.
That's true.
Plenty of followers. Don't listen. Don't get it twisted. It ain't just 2,000 people listen. We have a worldwide audience. That's just on Facebook, man.
That's true.
But yeah, you're right. It's just two different folks from two different backgrounds. It started out with just two of us. Now we got a team of 15 from folks all over the country that help contribute to this show just for the same love and passion of doing sports and doing journalism. We all believe different things. We all have different beliefs. Like he said, he's a Jewish guy. I've been Muslim. I've been Nation of Islam. I've been Christian. I've been Baptist. So I've been different religions. So, we all have different backgrounds, but we all have one common thing. The only way we can find out about that common thing is by communicating, by talking to each other. And you might not like someone's thought process, someone's politics, or someone's the way they, think, but they might not like the way you think also. But as long as they respect you and respect your decisions and what you do with your life, you should be able to do the same thing for them. And I'm ended on that because I ain't trying to get too much more political. We do that on Sunday night.
There you go.
As I said, we're going to end the show with Renegade 703. Make sure you go follow him. Got another video possibly coming out soon. But just stay tuned because we got so much more coming this way. It's about to be a game changer. CP3, Robbie G, SportsOTHP, True Video Network, DC Sports Without a Politics. It's not just a catchphrase. It's not just a motto. It's what we do. And we out.